In the heart of a grand mansion, where chandeliers sparkle like diamonds and classical melodies fill the air, a night of elegance takes an unexpected turn. Amid the glitter and glamour, a humble housemaid, Marta, and her innocent daughter, Louisa, stand on the fringes of a world not their own. What begins as a hopeful evening soon unravels into a painful confrontation, where the harsh realities of class and prejudice rear their ugly heads. But in the midst of this darkness, a glimmer of hope emerges, as unexpected allies rise to defend dignity and justice. This is a story of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child, a tale that takes us from the depths of despair to the heights of triumph. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. In the heart of a grand mansion, where chandeliers sparkled like diamonds and classical melodies whispered through the air, the Villanueva family's opulent party was in full bloom. The evening was meant to be one of elegance and prestige, a gathering of the elite where every detail exuded sophistication. Among the sea of silk and pearls, Marta, a humble housemaid, stood quietly in a corner with her 10-year-old daughter, Louisa, who was a picture of innocence and hope. Invited out of obligation, rather than genuine warmth, Marta felt the weight of the evening pressing down on her. Yet she remained poised, determined to protect her child from the coldness that surrounded them. Louisa, with her wide, curious eyes, saw an opportunity to make new friends when a group of children, giggling near the fountain, beckoned her over. With a heart full of optimism, she timidly approached, longing to be accepted. But the dream of a joyous evening was shattered in an instant. A boy named Fernando, his face twisted in disdain, locked his gaze on Louisa. "You shouldn't be here," he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. His eyes traveled over her plain dress, his expression growing even more contemptuous. "You're not one of us." The words struck Louisa like a blow, leaving her frozen in place, her eyes brimming with tears of confusion and hurt. Marta, who had been watching from afar, felt a surge of protective fury rise within her. She hurried over to her daughter, her heart pounding in her chest. "What's happening here?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady despite the rage simmering beneath the surface. Before Fernando could utter another cruel word, Mrs. Laura Villanueva, the hostess of the night, appeared, her face a mask of icy indifference. "Your daughter is disturbing the other children. This event is not for people like her." The coldness in her voice was unmistakable, and the sting of those words cut Marta to the core. She straightened, her voice quivering with both anger and dignity. "What do you mean by people like her? If you have something to say it directly. My daughter has as much right to be here as any other child." The tension crackled in the air as Don Alvaro, the head of the Villanueva family, stepped forward with a stern expression. "That's enough," he commanded. "If you're going to create a scene, I'll have to ask you to leave." The atmosphere grew thick with unease as the guests watched the unfolding drama, the music fading into an awkward silence. The judgmental stares from the crowd bore down on Marta and Louisa, who had done nothing to deserve such cruelty. As Marta clutched her daughter's hand and turned to leave, the doors of the mansion swung open, revealing an older man whose presence immediately commanded attention. He was regal and dignified, his aura one of undeniable authority. It was Don Ramon, a man of immense influence and, unbeknownst to many, the true power behind Don Alvaro's wealth. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him, his gaze lingering on the tear-streaked faces of Marta and Louisa. "What's going on here?" Don Ramon's voice rang out, silencing any whispers among the guests. Don Alvaro, now visibly shaken, struggled to find his voice, but Mrs. Laura Villanueva quickly interjected, attempting to twist the situation to her advantage. These two were causing a scene, she lied, hoping to salvage the situation. Don Ramon's eyes darkened as he looked from the Villanuevas to the trembling Louisa. Then, with a calm but unyielding voice, he delivered a revelation that sent shockwaves through the room. "That girl," he said, pointing to Louisa, "is my granddaughter." The declaration hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth, and in that moment, every guest felt the ground shift beneath them. Knees weakened and faces drained of color, as the realization of their grave mistake settled in. The arrogance and prejudice that had tainted the evening dissolved into a profound silence, leaving the Villanuevas and their guests to grapple with the consequences of their actions. The impact of Don Ramon's words was as sudden and forceful as a thunderclap on a serene night. Panic flickered in the eyes of Don Alvaro and his wife as they exchanged worried glances, while the murmurs of shock rippled through the crowd, disbelief etched on every face. The revelation had shattered the evening's elegance, leaving behind a tense, electric silence. "Alvaro, we need to have a conversation," now Don Ramon demanded, his gaze unwavering, piercing through the man who had served him for years. The mere thought of what might come next sent a tremor through Alvaro's body, his knees weak with fear. Marta and Louisa, still wiping away tears, now found a glimmer of hope as the night took a sudden, unexpected turn. The room was heavy with the unspoken tension as Don Ramon led Alvaro to a secluded corner of the grand salon. Marta, clutching Louisa's hand, watched the exchange intently, her heart pounding. She could see the color drain from Alvaro's face with every passing second, his composure unraveling, as if he might collapse under the weight of his dread. Don Ramon spoke with a calmness that was terrifyingly at odds with the gravity of his words. "Alvaro, you've been under my employ for many years. Never did I imagine you would allow such a disgraceful thing to happen to my granddaughter in your home." Alvaro, swallowing the lump in his throat, stammered, "Don Ramon, I had no idea Louisa was your granddaughter. If I had known." Don Ramon cut him off, his voice rising just enough to convey his mounting anger. "So you're saying your actions would have been different if you had known her identity? Do you require my influence to treat a child with basic human decency?" The question hung in the air, leaving Alvaro speechless. Mrs. Laura Villanueva, who had been standing nearby, attempted to intervene, but Don Ramon's steely glare froze her in place. Around them, the guests began to murmur amongst themselves, the atmosphere thick with unresolved tension and silent judgments. Seizing the moment, Marta stepped forward and addressed the onlookers, her voice clear and strong. "Let tonight serve as a powerful lesson for all of us. Every person, no matter their background or social standing, deserves respect and dignity. It is our duty to uphold these values." The room fell silent once more, her words resonating deeply with those who had witnessed the evening's events. After a moment of heavy deliberation, Don Ramon returned to the center of the room, Marta and Louisa at his side. The music had long since ceased, and every eye was fixed on him. "Tonight has laid bare many truths," he began, his tone authoritative and unyielding. "We have witnessed not just a lack of compassion, but also the remarkable strength of a mother and the undeniable courage of a child. My granddaughter, Louisa, has demonstrated more dignity tonight than many who stand here." His gaze then turned sharply to Don Alvaro and Mrs. Villanueva. "I expect you to deeply reflect on your actions tonight. An apology is just the beginning. I demand real change. My continued support for this family will depend on how you choose to remedy the harm you've caused." Alvaro, understanding the gravity of the situation, nodded, his voice barely a whisper as he said, "We will do whatever it takes to make this right, Don Ramon. Not just because of our professional ties, but because it is the right thing to do." Marta, feeling a sense of cautious relief, embraced Louisa tightly, her daughter clinging to her for comfort. Though the night had started in humiliation, it ended with a promise of transformation and a glimmer of justice. However, what Don Alvaro, Mrs. Villanueva, and those who had so cruelly judged little Louisa didn't realize was that this moment marked the beginning of their downfall. The life of luxury and excess they had known was about to unravel, leading them into a series of misfortunes they could never have anticipated, driven by the very forces they had underestimated. As the party guests slowly dispersed, the gravity of what had transpired hung heavily in the air. The next morning, Don Alvaro sat alone in his study, his mind racing with thoughts of how to regain control of the situation. The public dressing down by Don Ramon had been a severe blow to his pride and his standing within their social circle. Desperation clawed at him as he summoned his most trusted advisors, each chosen for their cunning and loyalty. "We need a strategy to counter this," Alvaro said with barely contained fury, his fist striking the table with a resounding thud. "I will not allow Don Ramon to dictate how I run my family or my business." Laura, her eyes gleaming with malice, added to the tense atmosphere. "What if we dig up something on Don Ramon, something so damning that it forces him to back off?" One of the advisors, known for his ruthless intelligence, leaned forward with a sinister grin. "Everyone has secrets, even someone as powerful as Don Ramon. We could discreetly investigate his past. Perhaps there's something we can use as leverage." Alvaro, torn between revulsion and intrigue, nodded slowly. "Do it. Find whatever you can. I refuse to let this be the end of our influence." Meanwhile, Marta was taking steps of her own. Determined to ensure that the humiliation she and Luisa endured would not be in vain, she began working on establishing a foundation dedicated to combating discrimination and exclusion. Aware that Alvaro might try to undermine her efforts, she moved quickly, organizing a meeting with potential allies and sponsors. "This foundation is not just a reaction to a single night of humiliation," Marta told the room full of influential figures. "It's a commitment to creating lasting change in how our community views and addresses discrimination." One attendee, a respected businessman, raised a pertinent question. "How do you plan to ensure the foundation has the impact you're promising, especially if you encounter resistance?" "With transparency, accountability, and collaboration," Marta replied confidently. "We are here to build bridges, not to make enemies. But make no mistake, we will stand firm against anyone who seeks to derail our mission." Her words carried a tone of resilience and determination that resonated deeply with those in attendance. As the meeting concluded, Marta knew she had taken the first steps toward not only healing her wounds, but also creating a force for good that would ripple through the entire community. Alvaro, with discreet support from Laura, initiated a comprehensive investigation into Don Ramon's past. They hired a seasoned private investigator, known for his discretion and thoroughness, to delve into Don Ramon's less publicized connections and financial dealings. The aim was to uncover any potentially damaging information that could be used against him. Weeks of meticulous research and analysis followed, during which the investigator sifted through decades-old financial transactions and obscure affiliations. Finally, one evening, the investigator arranged a secretive meeting with Alvaro and Laura at an unassuming location chosen for its privacy. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and tension as the investigator laid out a spread of documents and photographs on the table. "I have discovered something that could prove quite valuable to you," he said, pointing to a collection of records detailing questionable financial transactions and dubious relationships from decades ago. "Although these are not recent developments, they have the potential to seriously tarnish Don Ramon's public image if they were to be exposed." Alvaro examined the documents with growing satisfaction, his face lighting up as he absorbed the implications of the information. It was clear that this revelation could be the key to destabilizing Don Ramon's position. As Alvaro contemplated his next move, Marta received an anonymous call one afternoon, alerting her to the imminent danger. Don Ramon, although disturbed by the news, maintained a composed demeanor. "Thank you for the warning, Marta. I had anticipated that Alvaro might resort to such tactics. We need to act swiftly and strategically to protect both my reputation and the integrity of the foundation." Determined to counter any potential damage, Marta and Don Ramon decided to hold a press conference. The objective was to disclose the existence of the investigation preemptively, framing it in a manner that would mitigate any negative impact while showcasing Don Ramon's commitment to transparency and accountability. On the day of the press conference, the auditorium was filled with journalists and community members, all abuzz with curiosity about the urgent and unanticipated event. As the crowd settled, Don Ramon took his place in front of the microphones. His calm and collected exterior masked the inner turmoil he was experiencing. Good afternoon, everyone. I am grateful for your attendance at this pivotal moment. Today, I wish to address some rumors that have recently surfaced, casting doubt on my integrity and past actions. With deliberate and precise clarity, Don Ramon began to outline the transactions and associations that Alvaro might use to discredit him. Each of these decisions was made with the best judgment available at the time. I take full responsibility for both the positive and negative aspects of my actions. The room fell into a heavy silence as the audience absorbed Don Ramon's forthright and candid presentation. Marta, standing by Don Ramon's side, observed the crowd's reactions closely, trying to gauge the effectiveness of their strategy. Meanwhile, Alvaro, watching the press conference unfold live, was consumed with frustration and fury. His carefully orchestrated plan to undermine Don Ramon was unraveling before his eyes. "This old man is more devious than I had anticipated," he fumed, slamming his fist on the table. Laura approached him, her voice calm but urgent. "We can still turn this situation to our advantage. We need to question his sincerity and highlight the aspects he conveniently left out of his narrative." Alvaro, although frustrated, recognized the need for a revised approach. "Prepare a statement for the press. We will challenge his credibility and draw attention to the gaps in his story. If he wants to engage in a public display of transparency, let's ensure that the public sees every aspect of his supposed openness." Following Don Ramon's press conference, Alvaro wasted no time in mobilizing his response. He convened an emergency meeting with his closest advisors and his public relations team in the opulent boardroom of his company. "Don Ramon is attempting to present himself as an open book," Alvaro said, his tone a mixture of urgency and strategic calculation. "However, even the most transparent books can conceal secrets within their pages. We need to instigate public skepticism about what he chose not to disclose, what he conveniently omitted from his account." His team sprang into action, devising a strategic counterattack designed to cast doubt on the authenticity and sincerity of Don Ramon's revelations. The stage was set for a prolonged and intensifying public battle, with both sides preparing for a confrontation that promised to escalate tensions and deepen the rift between them. Laura, ever the strategic partner, proposed a new angle to their approach. "We should cast doubt on the authenticity of Don Ramon's transparency. What if we insinuate that his disclosures are merely a facade? We could suggest that there's much more he's hiding." One of Alvaro's advisors, a seasoned crisis management specialist, offered a more aggressive strategy. "What if we track down someone from Don Ramon's past, someone who can testify against him? We don't need concrete proof. Just the suggestion of impropriety could be enough to tarnish his reputation." Alvaro, visibly pleased with the direction, agreed. "That's an excellent approach. Laura, coordinate with the public relations team immediately. I want this insinuation to be the lead story in tomorrow's headlines. We need to make the public question whether they really know the true Don Ramon." With the strategy set, Alvaro's team went into overdrive. They crafted a series of carefully worded statements and orchestrated leaks designed to plant seeds of doubt about Don Ramon's integrity. "I have a lead that could be a game changer," the crisis specialist added, hinting at a potential source of scandalous information. Meanwhile, Marta was acutely aware of Alvaro's resolve and prepared herself for the escalating conflict. She recognized that the battle was far from over and began assembling her own team of allies and legal advisors. "We cannot afford to be intimidated," Marta declared to her newly formed team. Don Ramon and Luisa are depending on us to stay one step ahead. We need to be ready for any attack Alvaro might launch. The power struggle intensified as each side adapted their strategies. Alvaro, following through on his plan, arranged a secretive meeting with a former associate of Don Ramon's. This individual, embittered by past business dealings and holding a deep-seated grudge, was rumored to have damaging information. In a dimly lit room, the former associate slid a sealed envelope across the table towards Alvaro. Don Ramon isn't the saint he pretends to be. I have documents that could shake his moral high ground, the ex-associate said, his voice tinged with bitterness. Alvaro, smirking with satisfaction, replied, "This is exactly what we need. What's your price?" The man's response was laced with resentment. "I just want to see Don Ramon get what he deserves." With the envelope securely in hand, Alvaro returned home, eager to discuss the next steps with Laura. They decided the optimal strategy was to leak the information just before Don Ramon's next major shareholder meeting, aiming to maximize the impact and disruption. As Alvaro fine-tuned his plans, Marta was not idle. She shared her concerns with the Foundation's board about the impending retaliation from Alvaro and emphasized the need to be prepared for any possible attack. "We must be vigilant and ready to defend not only Don Ramon but also the integrity of our mission," Marta asserted, her resolve evident. Luisa, though still young, felt increasingly drawn into the familial conflict. Observing her mother's determination, she resolved to play a more proactive role. "Mom, I want to help. Maybe I could speak at the next public meeting and show that the Foundation is making a real difference." Marta, touched by her daughter's bravery, embraced her decision. "Of course, Luisa, your voice is as crucial as anyone's. Together we can confront whatever challenges Alvaro throws at us." As Luisa prepared to take on a more prominent role and Marta fortified her alliances, the Foundation emerged as a symbol of hope and resilience. Yet, the storm on the horizon promised to test their strength and unity more than ever. Tensions reached a boiling point when Marta, through days of relentless investigation and confrontation, uncovered a dark secret from Don Ramon's past that had fueled her animosity towards him. During a high-stakes meeting with Don Ramon's top executives, Marta decided it was time to confront him openly. "Don Ramon, it's time for the truth to be revealed," Marta declared, her voice steady but filled with restrained emotion. Don Ramon, who had anticipated this moment, responded with a resigned nod. "You're right, Marta. It's time for everyone to know what truly happened." Marta then disclosed that Don Ramon's financial and personal decisions from years ago, while not illegal, had significantly harmed her mother and led to their separation. The revelation struck a chord of shock and tension among those present, as the room fell into an expectant silence, bracing for the implications of this newfound truth. "I did what I thought was best at the time, but I now see the extent of the pain I caused," Don Ramon said with a depth of sincerity he had previously withheld. "Marta, I never intended for you to suffer because of my mistakes." His public confession hung heavy in the room, leaving the board members in stunned silence. Marta, though moved by Don Ramon's genuine remorse, understood that this was merely the beginning of a deeper reconciliation process. "It's not just me who deserves an apology, Don Ramon. Many were affected by your decisions, but today, I'm willing to work with you to mend the damage," she replied, her voice soft yet resolute. The budding relationship between Marta and Don Ramon, though on the path to healing, encountered new challenges when Marta assumed a role within Don Ramon's company. The transition was fraught with resistance from employees accustomed to the existing hierarchy. Marta's directives were frequently disregarded, and her superiors set her up with unrealistic demands. "We need results, Marta. We can't afford delays," one department head admonished her, his tone dripping with condescension. Marta maintained her composure and responded, "Results will follow when everyone here learns to collaborate and respect leadership, no matter its source." As resistance within the company intensified, Marta found herself battling on multiple fronts. Exhausted and disheartened, she confronted Don Ramon one afternoon in his office. "I can't continue like this, Ramon. If you don't reform this company's culture, not only will they undermine me, but they'll also threaten everything you've built," Marta said, her voice trembling under the strain. Don Ramon, visibly affected by Marta's distress, assured her of his support. "You're right, Marta. I'll do whatever it takes to effect change. I refuse to let them destroy you or our family." Just as the company faced internal upheaval, it was hit by an external crisis. A string of poor decisions by corrupt executives now dismissed had pushed the company to the brink of bankruptcy. News of the financial turmoil leaked to the press, drawing widespread scrutiny and concern from the business community. In an emergency meeting, Don Ramon, Marta, and the company's senior leaders convened around a conference table, their faces etched with anxiety. "We must act swiftly if we want to save the company," Don Ramon said, his voice a mix of tension and resolve. Marta, analyzing the financial documents laid out before her, highlighted the critical areas needing attention. "We require an immediate restructuring plan. More crucially, we need to foster a sense of unity within the team. Without collective effort, all our efforts will be futile." The urgency of the situation began to sway some dissenters, but one influential figure, Joaquin, remained vocally skeptical. "Why should we trust you, Marta? You lack the experience needed for a crisis of this scale," Joaquin challenged, his tone sharp and dismissive. Marta met Joaquin's challenge with unwavering resolve. "I might not have years of experience, but I bring determination and the full backing of Don Ramon. More importantly, I am committed to doing whatever it takes to save this company and safeguard the jobs of thousands of employees." Don Ramon interjected to support Marta's stance. "Joaquin, if you cannot accept Marta's leadership during this crisis, perhaps it's time for you to reconsider your place here. We need unity and dedication from everyone involved, and there is no room for skepticism or division." As the tension between Marta and the resistant elements within the company continued to build, the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Yet the combined efforts of Marta and Don Ramon represented a hopeful push towards recovery and renewal amidst the unfolding crisis. Don Ramon's ultimatum made it abundantly clear to everyone in the company loyalty and cooperation were no longer just valued but essential. The atmosphere was charged with pressure as employees, initially resistant, began to acknowledge Marta's relentless commitment and sacrifice. Despite the mounting stress, Don Ramon and Marta dove into the restructuring plan with unwavering determination. Days melded into sleepless nights, every decision crucial and laden with implications. Slowly, the initially skeptical staff began to shift their attitudes, recognizing the sincerity of Marta's efforts. However, just as things seemed to be stabilizing, a new and unexpected crisis emerged. Betrayal from within Don Ramon's trusted circle began to surface. Anonymous documents and emails started arriving, exposing a sinister scheme by some of the company's highest-ranking executives to undermine the restructuring efforts. One afternoon, while meticulously reviewing the latest reports, Marta received an anonymous email that contained alarming evidence against several senior executives. Her heart raced as she processed the gravity of the information. Knowing the importance of the find, she immediately brought the evidence to Don Ramon. "Look at this, Ramon. We're not just dealing with external threats, we have internal saboteurs working against us," Marta said, her voice laced with frustration and urgency. Don Ramon, upon examining the damning evidence, was overwhelmed with a mix of betrayal and anger. "I can't believe this. These people have been with me for years, and now they're conspiring against everything we're trying to rebuild," he said, his voice filled with disbelief and hurt. Together, they decided to convene an urgent meeting with the implicated executives. The boardroom was filled with a tense silence as the executives faced scrutiny and suspicion. "We have compelling evidence showing that some of you have been actively working against the company's interests." Don Ramon began, his tone resolute and unforgiving. Such behavior is completely unacceptable. Manuel, one of the accused, tried to defend himself. This is a misunderstanding. There's no betrayal here, only some miscommunications and poor decisions, he argued. Marta, holding up the incriminating documents, confronted him with steely resolve. These emails are not misunderstandings. They are clear evidence of deliberate sabotage. How do you justify your actions? The room fell into a heavy silence as the accused struggled to provide credible responses. Don Ramon, recognizing the necessity of a decisive action, made an unequivocal decision. Manuel and all others involved are to be terminated immediately. I will not allow these betrayals to undermine everything we've worked to rebuild. The news of the mass firing spread rapidly, evoking a mixed reaction of relief and apprehension among the remaining staff. Despite the elimination of the internal threats, Marta and Don Ramon were acutely aware that their struggle was far from over. With the traitors ousted, Marta's role in the company became increasingly critical, and she demonstrated her capability to lead with both firmness and integrity. Alvaro, however, saw Marta's growing influence as a direct threat to his own aspirations. Fuming over the recent turn of events, Alvaro convened a secret meeting with Laura and their closest allies at his opulent mansion. We can't let Marta and Don Ramon emerge victorious. If they continue unchecked, we risk losing everything we've built, Alvaro declared, his voice brimming with suppressed rage. Laura, ever astute, proposed a counter-offensive strategy. We need to deliver a blow that will leave them reeling, something that will utterly destroy their credibility. We could leverage Marta's past to make them appear incompetent and dishonest. If we can expose her flaws, it will severely damage their public image. Alvaro's face lit up with a sinister smile as he considered Laura's suggestion. That's a brilliant idea. We'll stage a high-profile social event designed to trap and publicly humiliate Marta. If we can uncover and highlight any weaknesses, it will set the stage for her downfall. With their plan in motion, Alvaro and Laura set about orchestrating the event, determined to regain their foothold and dismantle the progress Don Ramon and Marta had made. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown, with each side preparing for the next move in this high-stakes battle of power and influence. Alvaro's wife, leveraging her extensive network, orchestrated an extravagant charity gala, meticulously designed as a trap for Marta. Unaware of the scheme, Marta and Luisa arrived at the event, dressed to impress and ready to support the foundation. As Marta took the stage to deliver her keynote address, Alvaro and Laura bided their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Midway through Marta's speech, Laura abruptly interrupted, feigning urgency. "Excuse me, everyone," Laura said, stepping onto the stage with a dramatic air. "Before we continue, I believe it's crucial for everyone here to be aware of some important truths about Marta." She held up an envelope filled with falsified documents, the contents designed to tarnish Marta's reputation. The audience fell into a hush, curiosity piqued by the sudden disruption. Laura began reading aloud, her voice dripping with deceit as she distorted facts and levied accusations against Marta. According to these documents, Marta has been misappropriating foundation funds for her personal benefit. Marta, though visibly taken aback, remained composed. She approached Laura, her voice steady but firm. "This is an outright lie. All foundation funds are rigorously audited and fully transparent. These accusations are baseless and intended to defame us." Despite her protestations, the seed of doubt had been sown. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, and a few attendees began to exit, swayed by the allegations. Turning to Alvaro, Marta confronted him with a mix of anger and resolve. "This won't go unanswered, Alvaro. I will not stand by and let you tarnish my reputation and the foundation with your fabrications." Alvaro responded with a disdainful smirk, clearly enjoying the chaos. "We'll see how long you can hold up under the pressure, Marta. This is just the beginning." If you're following along with our character's journey, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your support means a lot to me. and subscribing would greatly help me continue bringing you engaging stories. Thank you for your support and blessings. Now let's dive back into the story, where the most thrilling chapters are yet to unfold. Determined to fight back, Marta and Luisa left the gala with resolve despite their shaken spirits. The following day, headlines across newspapers and social media buzzed with sensationalized reports about the accusations against Marta. Both the foundation's and Marta's reputations were under siege. At Don Ramon's residence, Marta, Luisa, and Don Ramon convened to strategize their response. Marta, her eyes tired and red from sleepless nights, addressed Don Ramon and Luisa. "We cannot let these falsehoods destroy everything we've worked for. We must act swiftly to restore our good name." Don Ramon, though deeply concerned, offered unwavering support. "Marta, we've weathered storms before, and we will do so again. But we need a well-defined plan to navigate this crisis." Luisa, with a rare burst of determination, suggested a proactive approach. "Let's harness the power of social media to tell our side of the story. We need to showcase the foundation's transparency and expose Alvaro and Laura's deceit." Marta, recognizing the validity of Luisa's suggestion, agreed. "You're right, Luisa. We must utilize every available platform to reach the public directly with renewed purpose." Marta and her team sprang into action, compiling comprehensive evidence to counter the false claims. They decided to conduct a live broadcast to present their case transparently and convincingly. On the night of the broadcast, Marta and Luisa sat resolutely in front of the camera, surrounded by detailed documents and financial charts that would validate their integrity. The tension was palpable, but their resolve was unshakable. "Good evening," Marta began, her voice resolute. "Tonight, I address you directly, unfiltered by intermediaries. The allegations against us are entirely false, and we are here to set the record straight." Luisa took over, presenting detailed charts and documents. "Here are the full audit reports for the past several years. Every donation and every expense has been meticulously recorded and is fully transparent. We have nothing to conceal." As the broadcast continued, Marta and Luisa methodically dismantled the accusations, demonstrating the foundation's unwavering commitment to integrity and transparency. Their detailed presentation aimed to restore public trust and challenge the baseless claims that threatened to unravel their hard-earned reputation. As Marta and Luisa continued their live broadcast, the tide began to turn. Social media started to shift in their favor, with comments and shares reflecting a growing public support for their side of the story. The once critical voices began to see through the fabrications, and the narrative began to reclaim its truth. Yet, amid the resurgence of support, Marta knew that Alvaro and Laura would not back down without a fierce struggle. In response to the broadcast's success, Alvaro and Laura recognized that their initial scheme was unraveling. Determined to salvage their plan, they resorted to more extreme tactics. They convened a covert meeting with a group of employees who had been recently dismissed by Don Ramon. Their goal was to recruit these disgruntled individuals to fabricate testimonies that would further tarnish Marta's and the foundation's reputations. In a dimly lit room, Alvaro addressed the group with a steely resolve. "We need you to provide false testimonies against Marta. Claim that she has manipulated funds and abused her power. If you cooperate, there will be substantial rewards for all of you," he promised, his voice dripping with persuasion. Ricardo, one of the former employees, voiced his apprehensions. "This is a dangerous move. If we're exposed, the repercussions could be severe." Laura, maintaining her icy composure, reassured him. "Don't worry. We have connections who will ensure your testimonies are taken seriously. Plus, the rewards for your cooperation will be significant. Just think about what's at stake for you." Under the weight of these incentives, Ricardo and the others reluctantly agreed to participate, and Alvaro's scheme was set into motion. However, not everyone involved was comfortable with the deceit. Carla, another former employee, experienced a pang of conscience after the meeting. That night, she made a clandestine phone call to Marta, her voice trembling with urgency. "Marta, it's Carla. I need to speak with you. There's something crucial you need to know." Marta, who was sifting through documents in her office, was intrigued and anxious about the call. "What is it, Carla?" "I'm listening." Carla, clearly distressed, met Marta in a quiet park, sitting on a bench with her hands fidgeting nervously. "Thank you for meeting me. I couldn't go through with the plan. Alvaro and Laura are orchestrating a scheme to use false testimonies against you. They're bribing us to lie about you and the foundation." Marta listened intently, her emotions a mixture of relief and anger. "Carla, are you willing to stand against them? We need concrete evidence to expose their deception." Carla, her face pale but resolute, agreed. "Yes, I'm ready. I can't be a part of ruining people's lives with lies." Together, Marta and Carla devised a plan to gather irrefutable evidence against Alvaro and Laura. They decided to orchestrate a fake meeting where Carla would covertly record Alvaro and Laura's conversation. The operation had to be executed with precision. Any slip-up could jeopardize their efforts. They arranged for Carla to meet Alvaro under the guise of discussing a potential deal. During the meeting, Carla would wear a concealed microphone to capture incriminating evidence of Alvaro and Laura's attempts to manipulate and bribe. Marta meticulously planned every detail to ensure the success of their operation and the safety of Carla. The stage was set for the crucial confrontation. As Marta prepared for the next steps, she knew that exposing Alvaro and Laura's deceit was essential to clearing her name and protecting the foundation. The upcoming days would determine whether their plan to reveal the truth would succeed and restore their reputations. The setting for the pivotal meeting was a discreet restaurant, chosen for its privacy and quiet ambience. Carla, her nerves frayed but her resolve firm, met with Alvaro, who remained blissfully unaware of the trap set for him. As they conversed, Carla skillfully navigated the discussion, subtly guiding Alvaro into revealing his manipulative plans. "All you have to do is follow the script, we'll handle the rest," Alvaro casually mentioned, completely unaware that every word was being recorded by Carla's hidden device. Later that evening, Marta and Carla presented the damning recording to Don Ramon. The gravity of the evidence was immediately apparent. Don Ramon, his face reflecting a mix of relief and determination, addressed Marta with resolute clarity. "This is more than enough to dismantle their scheme, Marta. We need to take this to the authorities and exonerate you once and for all." The gravity of their situation intensified with this new development. Marta, now armed with critical evidence, was determined to leverage it to its fullest potential. Don Ramon, Carla, and Marta proceeded to the district attorney's office, a hive of activity and anticipation. The district attorney, intrigued by the gravity of the case, met with them promptly. After listening intently to the recording, he remarked, "This is a serious allegation. With this evidence, we can initiate a formal investigation into Alvaro and Laura's actions." Marta, visibly relieved yet focused, responded, "Our goal is not only to seek justice for ourselves, but to expose the manipulation and harm they've inflicted on others." Back at Alvaro's mansion, the atmosphere was fraught with tension. Laura, acutely aware that their plan might be falling apart, became increasingly paranoid. Her fears were confirmed when she received an unexpected call from the district attorney. "Mr. Alvaro, Mrs. Laura, we are opening an official investigation into the allegations against you. I advise you to prepare for cooperation," the voice on the other end of the line stated. The call left Alvaro visibly shaken. "This can't be happening. We need to devise a strategy," and quickly he exclaimed, his face contorted with frustration and anxiety. In court, the stakes were at their highest. Marta and Don Ramon, flanked by their legal team, faced Alvaro and Laura, who were attempting to maintain their composure despite the mounting pressure. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as Carla's recording was played for all to hear. The tension was palpable, and the room seemed to hold its breath. This evidence clearly demonstrates that Alvaro and Laura engaged in a deliberate effort to distort the truth and damage the reputations of Marta and Don Ramon, the district attorney declared, his voice cutting through the silence with authority. Such actions are intolerable in our society. In a last-ditch effort, Alvaro, desperate and cornered, lashed out. "This is a setup. Everything has been manipulated," he shouted, pointing accusingly at Marta and Don Ramon. The judge, unmoved by the outburst, responded with unwavering firmness. "Mr. Alvaro, the evidence presented is conclusive. You will face the consequences of your actions." With the evidence irrefutable and their guilt undeniable, the verdict was swift and decisive. Alvaro and Laura were found guilty of conspiracy and defamation. The court imposed significant penalties, including substantial compensation for Marta and the foundation and a prison sentence for the convicted pair. Their removal from the picture marked a significant turning point. As the community witnessed the resolution of this tumultuous chapter, a groundswell of support emerged for Marta and Don Ramon. Donations and volunteers poured into the foundation, reflecting a renewed faith in their mission and values. During a meeting with the foundation's board, Marta expressed her heartfelt gratitude and shared her renewed vision for the future. "We have endured a lot, but our trials have only strengthened us. Now, more than ever, we must remain focused on our mission of inclusion and justice." Luisa, who had been a steadfast and quiet force throughout the ordeal, finally spoke up with pride. "Mom, I'm so proud of you and our entire team. We've proven that truth and justice ultimately prevail." Don Ramon, deeply moved by the resilience and unity displayed, added with a hopeful tone, "Marta, Luisa, what we've achieved together is extraordinary. This is merely the beginning. We have a bright future ahead, full of opportunities and possibilities." The atmosphere at Don Ramon's mansion was charged with anxiety and urgency. Marta's face was a portrait of worry as she paced back and forth, trying to stave off the creeping fear for her daughter's safety. Don Ramon, already in action mode, had mobilized his private security team, led by Miguel, who had quickly established himself as a crucial ally in the crisis. The news that Luisa was missing and the ransom demand arrived with chilling clarity. "If you want to see your daughter again, drop all charges against Alvaro and Laura," the text message had stated. It was a cruel ultimatum, but Marta knew giving in would only embolden Ricardo and further endanger others. As Marta showed the message to Don Ramon, his expression hardened. "This is desperation," he said, trying to keep his own anxiety in check. "But we can't let them win." Miguel's team worked swiftly, tracing the origin of the text message to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Miguel, an expert in crisis management, was already making arrangements for a tactical approach. "We've pinpointed the location," he said, holding up a map. "We need to move quickly." Determined not to wait idly, Marta insisted on accompanying the team. Despite Don Ramon's concerns for her safety, her resolve was unwavering. "She's my daughter. I'm coming with you," Marta insisted, her voice firm. The black SUV cut through the night, the tension inside palpable. Marta, Don Ramon, and Miguel were joined by a few members of the security team, their focus sharp as they approached the warehouse. The drive was fraught with unease, Marta's mind racing with thoughts of her daughter's predicament. In the warehouse, Luisa was bound and sitting in a dark corner. Ricardo, a figure of malevolent intent, paced nearby, his confidence a stark contrast to Luisa's brave demeanor. "Your mother will give in soon," he said coldly. "All of this will end when she complies." Luisa, her fear tempered by hope, responded bravely. "My mom never gives up. She'll come for me, and you'll regret this." Ricardo's laughter was tinged with a hint of uncertainty. He knew that Marta and Don Ramon were not easily deterred, and he was aware that underestimating them could be a grave error. His bravado wavered slightly as he considered the possibility that Marta might defy expectations. The black SUV arrived at the warehouse, its occupants prepared for a high-stakes confrontation. Miguel and his team moved with precision, positioning themselves strategically around the building. Marta, her heart pounding, clutched the handle of the SUV's door, ready to act. Miguel signaled for everyone to be ready. "We go in on my mark," he instructed. Marta's eyes were locked on the warehouse, her thoughts consumed by the safety of her daughter. "Let's do this," she said, her voice resolute. As Miguel and his team breached the warehouse, the operation unfolded with practiced efficiency. Inside, Ricardo's confidence was shattered by the sudden and well-coordinated intervention. The security team moved swiftly, neutralizing any threats and securing the premises. Ricardo's face contorted with anger and disbelief as he realized his plans were unraveling. "This can't be happening," he shouted, but his protests were met with the stern, decisive actions of the security team. Marta, her heart racing, finally saw her daughter being freed. Luisa, though shaken, was unharmed. Marta rushed to her, embracing her tightly. "Luisa, you're safe." "I'm so sorry," Marta whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. Luisa, her spirit undiminished, hugged her mother back. "I knew you'd come, Mom." With Ricardo apprehended and the warehouse secure, Marta, Don Ramon, and their team began the journey back. The immediate crisis resolved, but the emotional impact of the ordeal still fresh. The community, having witnessed the depth of Marta's commitment and the resilience of the foundation, rallied around them, reinforcing their support. Back at the mansion, Marta took a moment to reflect. The experience had tested her in unimaginable ways, but it had also highlighted the strength of her resolve and the solidarity of those who stood by her. "We've been through so much," Marta said to Don Ramon and Luisa, "but we've proven that nothing can break us." Don Ramon, his expression a mix of relief and pride, added, "Marta, you've shown incredible strength. This is just the beginning. Together we'll continue our mission and make a difference." As they faced the future, the foundation stood as a beacon of hope and resilience, ready to overcome any challenge that came their way. The rescue operation unfolded with precision and urgency. As Miguel's team executed their plan, Marta and Don Ramon waited anxiously outside, their nerves on edge. The sounds of struggle from within the warehouse heightened their tension, each moment stretching into an eternity. When Miguel emerged, carrying Luisa safely in his arms, a wave of relief washed over Marta. "Luisa," she cried out, rushing forward. Her embrace was a mixture of profound relief and tearful joy. "I'm here, sweetheart. Everything's okay now." Luisa, still visibly shaken, clung tightly to her mother. "I knew you'd come for me, Mom. I knew you would." Don Ramon, moved by the emotional reunion, joined them in the embrace. His eyes glistened with tears as he spoke. "We're together now. No one will hurt us again." The family's reunion marked the end of a harrowing chapter, but Marta understood that the ramifications of the ordeal were far from over. The media frenzy began almost immediately. The news of Luisa's kidnapping and subsequent rescue became a sensational story, with journalists and cameras swarming around Don Ramon's mansion. Exhausted but resolute, Marta prepared to address the public. Don Ramon, ever the strategist, organized a press conference to manage the situation and assert their resolve. In the mansion's main hall, packed with journalists, Marta stood at the microphone with Luisa by her side. Despite her visible fatigue, her voice was strong and determined. "Today we face one of the darkest moments of our lives," she began. "My daughter was kidnapped in an attempt to intimidate us and force us to drop charges against Alvaro and Laura. We will not give in to these cowardly acts." A murmur of surprise and interest swept through the crowd. Marta continued, her words defiant and clear. "To all those who think they can intimidate us, I say this: we will not stop. We will continue fighting for justice and for the truth. We will not be silenced. As the press conference concluded, the media coverage continued to intensify. Marta and Don Ramon knew that their fight was far from over and that they needed to be vigilant. In a dark corner of the city, Ricardo, now in custody, seethed with anger. Though defeated, he was far from finished. He began contacting old allies from his cell, plotting new schemes to exact his revenge. Back at the mansion, Marta, Don Ramon, and their security team convened to strategize their next steps. Miguel, the head of the security team, reassured them of their increased vigilance. "We're strengthening surveillance and monitoring every move Ricardo and his associates make. We won't leave anything to chance." Marta, still processing the trauma of the recent events, took a moment to comfort Luisa, who was struggling to recover from the ordeal. "Mom, do you think this will ever end?" Luisa asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. Marta held her daughter close, her own fears momentarily pushed aside. "We'll get through this, Luisa. I don't know when it will end, but I promise I'll always be here to protect you." Her words, though hopeful, carried the weight of uncertainty as they faced an unpredictable future. With their security bolstered and their resolve firm, Marta and Don Ramon prepared to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. The Foundation's mission of justice and inclusion remained their guiding light, even as they navigated the ongoing threats and uncertainties. As the night deepened, the family's attempt to return to normalcy seemed futile. The weight of their predicament was heavy, casting a long shadow over their attempts to find solace. Marta sat vigil by Luisa's bed, the silence of the mansion punctuated only by the quiet ticking of a clock. Her thoughts were a swirl of strategies and plans, each more daunting than the last. Despite the atmosphere of tension, there was a resolute sense of unity. Marta was determined that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. The sudden and shocking news of Laura's release from prison was a jarring blow. The legal technicality and influence of her powerful allies had turned the tide once more. The news broadcast was a painful spectacle, showing Laura's triumphant exit from prison. The sight of her surrounded by journalists, smiling with an air of victory, was a stark reminder of the relentless nature of their enemies. Marta's heart sank as she watched the news. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her voice breaking as the reality of their renewed danger set in. Laura, freed from her incarceration, was not wasting any time. Her cold and calculated mind was already working on a plan of revenge. She reached out to her allies and began orchestrating a series of attacks to dismantle everything Marta and Don Ramon had worked so hard to build. Back at Don Ramon's mansion, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of fear and resolve. The security team was on high alert, but the palpable fear was a testament to the severity of the threat. That night, as the family tried to rest, Marta received a chilling call. Laura's voice, dripping with malice, was a stark reminder of the danger they faced. "Hello, Marta," Laura taunted. "Surprised to hear me? I just wanted to tell you that this isn't over, it's just beginning. Enjoy every moment of peace you have left." Marta's blood ran cold. She hung up the phone and rushed to the living room, where Don Ramon and Luisa were already awake, disturbed by the security team's heightened activity. It was Laura. "She called to threaten me," Marta said, her voice trembling but resolute. Don Ramon's face hardened with determination. "We can't let her intimidate us. We need to stay one step ahead. Let's call a meeting with our entire security team and our lawyers. This time we won't leave any loose ends." The urgency in his voice underscored the gravity of their situation. As Laura executed her plan with meticulous precision, she unleashed a series of attacks against Don Ramon's company and Marta's foundation. Strategic leaks to the press, internal sabotage, and veiled threats began to erode the stability of their institutions. The attacks were designed not just to disrupt but to demoralize, attacking the core of their strength. One morning, As Marta and Don Ramon reviewed the latest damage caused by Laura, Miguel, the head of security, entered with a grave expression. "We have information that Laura is planning something big. We don't have all the details, but we know she's gathering dangerous people," Miguel reported. Marta's resolve solidified in the face of this new threat. "We need to protect not only our family but also our employees and everyone who depends on us. We're going to take more drastic measures." Her words, though filled with fear, carried a determined edge that underscored her refusal to back down. Laura, from her hidden location, watched with grim satisfaction as her plans began to unfold. She understood that psychological warfare was a powerful tool, but she also knew that a decisive blow was necessary to completely shatter Marta and Don Ramon's defenses. That night, as Marta lay in bed, the weight of responsibility and the fear for her family kept her awake. In the darkened room, she found a flicker of determination. She knew that surrender was not an option. The battle was far from over, but with her family by her side and her resolve as unyielding as ever, she was ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. As the news of Laura's release spread, it set off a series of urgent reactions at Don Ramon's mansion. The family and their security team were now facing an imminent threat from a vengeful adversary with a meticulously crafted plan. The mansion was fortified with heightened security measures, but the tension was palpable as the family braced for the worst. Miguel's urgent call confirmed their worst fears. Laura had hired a group of mercenaries for a direct assault. Marta's heart raced as she heard the gravity of the situation. "Do whatever is necessary, Miguel. We can't let them catch us by surprise," she instructed, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her. The night descended with an oppressive sense of dread. Guards patrolled the grounds with heightened vigilance, and every family member was on edge. The silence was abruptly shattered by a deafening explosion that rocked the mansion. Gunfire erupted, mingling with screams and chaos. Here Miguel's voice cut through the tumult as he took command, directing the guards to repel the mercenaries. Marta and Don Ramon swiftly moved to the basement, where Luisa and other family members had taken refuge. Despite the panic that gripped everyone, Marta's composure remained a source of strength. She comforted Luisa, holding her tightly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We're safe here," she reassured, her voice firm but soothing. Outside, Laura's mercenaries, well-trained and ruthless, advanced through the mansion's defenses. Laura, observing from a safe distance, watched with a cold satisfaction, believing her plan would finally bring down her enemies. Don Ramon, despite his age, joined Miguel in the fierce defense of the mansion. His resolve was unwavering, and he fought alongside his men with relentless courage. Amid the intense battle, Marta made a crucial decision. "We can't stay here, Ramon. We must get Luisa and the others out of the mansion. There's an escape tunnel in the basement that will lead us to safety." Don Ramon, recognizing the urgency of Marta's plan, agreed. "Take Luisa and the others. Miguel and I will hold the defense here." Marta led Luisa and the others through the escape tunnel, a hidden passage Don Ramon had built years ago for emergencies. The tunnel was dark and narrow, each step echoing with the fear of discovery. Marta stayed close to Luisa, whispering words of reassurance. "Everything will be fine, Luisa. Just keep moving." They emerged from the tunnel into a nearby forest, a place of temporary refuge. The clearing was dim and still, offering a brief respite from the chaos they had left behind. Marta ensured everyone was safe and accounted for before they began to strategize their next move. Back at the mansion, Don Ramon and Miguel fought valiantly but were increasingly overwhelmed. Miguel realized that they could not hold their position much longer. "We must retreat. We can't hold this position much longer," he shouted. Don Ramon, though reluctant, knew it was the only option. "All right, let's regroup with the others. We can't let Laura win." Both men, exhausted and battered, used their knowledge of the terrain to evade the mercenaries and find their way to the forest clearing. The battle's sounds had faded, leaving a tense quiet in their wake. Marta's eyes scanned the darkness until she saw the familiar figures of Don Ramon and Miguel approaching, their bodies marked by the fight, but their spirits undeterred. "Dad," Marta shouted, running to embrace Don Ramon. Relief and emotion mingled in their tearful reunion. "I'm fine, Marta. We're all fine," Don Ramon reassured her, his voice breaking with relief. Miguel, though shaken, remained resolute. As the family regrouped in the forest, they knew that their fight was far from over. "We need to dismantle Laura's network from within," Miguel proposed, his determination evident. "I have contacts who can help us locate her allies and neutralize them." Marta nodded, her resolve hardening. "And we must do it quickly, before Laura has the chance to regroup. We can't let this continue." Don Ramon, despite his exhaustion, stood firm. "We're all in this together. Let's end this nightmare." The family, now united and determined, prepared to confront Laura and her mercenaries once and for all, knowing that their battle for survival and justice was only beginning. Using the vital information provided by Miguel and his network of contacts, Marta, Don Ramon, and their security team meticulously orchestrated a final assault on Laura's hideout. The hideout, heavily fortified with guards and security measures, presented a formidable challenge, but their determination was unwavering. Each member of the team knew the stakes were high, and their resolve was strengthened by the knowledge that this confrontation could end the ongoing nightmare. Their approach was carefully planned. They moved with precision and stealth, neutralizing the guards one by one. The operation unfolded with a series of strategic maneuvers that allowed them to advance deeper into the heart of Laura's stronghold. The tension was palpable, but their training and commitment kept them focused. As they reached the central chamber of the hideout, they finally came face to face with Laura. She was waiting for them, a cold, triumphant smile playing on her lips. "Did you really think you could stop me?" Laura taunted, her eyes narrowing as she pointed directly at Marta. The sense of menace in her voice was unmistakable. In a dramatic and courageous act, Luisa stepped forward, placing herself directly between her mother and Laura. Despite her fear, her bravery shone through. "Stop, Laura. We won't let you destroy us," she declared firmly, her voice steady despite the perilous situation. This unexpected act of defiance provided Miguel with the crucial opportunity he needed. Seizing the moment, he moved swiftly to disarm Laura. With practiced efficiency, he subdued her, ensuring she was restrained and immobilized on the floor. The security team secured the area, leaving Laura with no chance of escape. Marta approached Laura, her face a mix of steely determination and deep compassion. The journey had been long and arduous, but she faced Laura with unyielding resolve. "This ends here," Marta said, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We won't let you continue to inflict harm on anyone else." Laura was subsequently handed over to the authorities, who ensured that there would be no legal loopholes or influential figures to rescue her this time. She was taken into custody, facing the full consequences of her actions. The relief of knowing that Laura could no longer pose a threat began to seep into the lives of Marta, Don Ramon, and Luisa. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Marta, Don Ramon, and Luisa gathered in the living room, reflecting on the harrowing experiences they had endured. The sense of camaraderie and strength that had emerged from their trials was evident. "We've been through so much," Don Ramon said, his voice heavy with both pride and fatigue. "But we've faced every challenge together. We've proven that there's nothing we can't overcome as a family." Marta looked at Luisa, her eyes filled with profound gratitude and love. She took Luisa's hand and gently squeezed it. "The most important thing," Marta said softly, "is that we're together and safe. No matter what happens, nothing is more valuable than our family's unity and well-being." Their journey had tested their limits, but it had also solidified their bonds. As they looked ahead, the path to healing and rebuilding lay before them. The family was ready to embrace the future, fortified by the strength they had found in each other and the unbreakable love that had seen them through the darkest times. A few months after the dramatic events, a family reunion was held at Don Ramon's mansion, marking a significant milestone in their journey. The foundation, which had been instrumental in their efforts, had not only recovered but had also thrived. Similarly, the company, once on the brink, had rebounded strongly. Marta and Don Ramon, having weathered countless trials together, were now guided by the hard-earned experience and resolute determination forged through their adversities. Louisa, transformed by her experiences, had grown into a remarkably stronger and more confident young woman. Her academic pursuits continued to flourish, and she actively contributed to the foundation, drawing inspiration from her mother's unwavering commitment and resilience. The reunion was a celebration of their triumph over the turmoil that had once overshadowed their lives. Standing before her family, Marta gave an emotional speech that resonated with heartfelt sincerity. "Today we celebrate not only our victory but also the incredible strength of our family," she declared. "Together we've demonstrated that love and justice always prevail, no matter how formidable the challenges." As the evening unfolded, the family came together in a joyous toast to their shared future. They knew that while the journey had been arduous, they had emerged from it not only victorious but also more united than ever. The mansion, once a site of intense struggle, had become a beacon of hope and resilience, embodying the spirit of their collective strength. In the garden of the mansion, bathed in the warmth of the setting sun, Marta, Don Ramon, and Louisa found a peaceful respite. The wounds of their past struggles were still present, but they were overshadowed by the deep love and determination that had carried them through. Marta, holding Louisa's hand, reflected on their journey. "We faced so much darkness and come out stronger on the other side," she said softly. "Now, it's time for us to live fully and peacefully." Louisa, with a bright smile and a touch of gratitude in her eyes, responded, "Thank you for never giving up, Mom." "You're my hero," and her words, filled with love and admiration, spoke volumes about the strength of their bond. Don Ramon, his eyes glistening with pride, added, "We are a family, and that's something unbreakable. Together we can face and overcome anything that comes our way." His voice carried the weight of their shared experiences and the unshakable unity that had become their greatest strength. As the day drew to a close, the family embraced the future with renewed hope and a deep sense of fulfillment. Their journey had been marked by trials, but they had found their way to peace and stability. The mansion, now a symbol of their resilience, stood as a testament to their enduring spirit and the love that had seen them through their darkest times. As we come to the end of this powerful story, it's a moment to reflect on the journey we've witnessed, the challenges faced, the resilience shown, and the ultimate triumph of love and justice. What have you learned from Marta's unwavering strength and determination? How can the lessons of courage, dignity, and unity be applied to your own life? I invite you to share one thing you've learned from this story that you'll bring into practice in your own life. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you inspiring content. Blessings to all.